She's being sold to a monster, and the altar is waiting. Arya Vale is about to become Mrs. Lucian Moretti, a man whose name makes grown men flinch. Her father's debt sealed her fate, and in minutes, she'll belong to the city's most feared crime lord. There's no running, no refusing, only a white dress and a future she can't escape. One kiss will bind her to darkness. One vow will lock the cage. This is her wedding day, and it might be the last choice she ever makes. Stay until the end to see if she survives, and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The dress was too tight. Arya stood in front of the mirror, fingers trembling against the lace bodice that felt more like a straitjacket than a wedding gown. White silk, delicate beading, a train that pooled behind her like spilled milk. Beautiful, expensive, suffocating. Her reflection stared back, pale skin, dark eyes rimmed with exhaustion, lips pressed into a thin line. She looked like a ghost. Maybe she was already dead and just didn't know it yet. The door opened without a knock. Her father stepped inside, his suit wrinkled, his face drawn. Richard Vale had aged a decade in the past month. The gambling debts had done that. The threats. The men who came to their house in the middle of the night with voices like gravel and eyes like wolves. "You look beautiful," he said quietly. Arya didn't turn around. "Don't." Arya bites. "I said don't." Her voice cracked despite her best effort. "You don't get to do this. Stand there and pretend this is normal. That you didn't just sell me to pay off your mistakes." Richard flinched, and for a moment she almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Then she remembered why she was wearing white, why there was a car waiting downstairs, why her hands wouldn't stop shaking. "It was the only way," he said, his voice thick. "You don't understand what these people are capable of. So you gave me to one of them instead." She finally looked at him, and the devastation in his eyes didn't move her the way it once would have. "You gave me to him. To Lucian Moretti." The name hung in the air like smoke. Even saying it felt dangerous. Richard stepped closer, hands outstretched as if he might touch her shoulder, offer comfort. She stepped back. He stopped. "He promised he'd take care of you," Richard tried. He said he'd forgive your debt if I married him. That's what he said." Arya's laugh was bitter, sharp enough to cut. "And you believed him because you were desperate, because you had no other options, because you're a coward." The words landed like slaps. Richard's face crumpled, but Arya felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt, just emptiness. "I had no choice," he whispered. "You always have a choice. You just made the easy one." She turned back to the mirror, adjusting the veil that some stranger had pinned into her hair. "Now get out. I need a minute." "Arya, get out." He left. The door clicked shut and Arya was alone with her reflection again. She pressed her palms flat against the vanity, breathing through her nose, counting to 10. She would not cry. She would not fall apart. She would walk out of this room, down the stairs, into that car. She would stand at an altar in front of people she didn't know and marry a man whose reputation was built on fear and violence. She would survive this. She had to. The church was small, private, tucked away in a part of the city Arya had never seen before. High stone walls, stained glass windows filtering colored light across polished pews. There were maybe 30 people inside. She didn't recognize any of them. Hard faces, expensive suits, women with sharp eyes and sharper smiles. This wasn't a wedding, it was a transaction, a business merger. And she was the commodity being traded. The organist started playing, some classical piece she didn't know the name of. Her father offered his arm. She took it because refusing would only delay the inevitable. They walked down the aisle together, her heels clicking against marble, the train of her dress whispering behind her. And at the end of the aisle, Lucian Moretti waited. Arya had seen him once before, the night he came to their house. The night her father sat across from him at their dining room table and signed away her future. She'd watched from the stairs, hidden in shadow, as the two men shook hands. Lucian hadn't smiled, hadn't spoken much at all. He'd simply nodded, stood, and left. She remembered the way he moved, controlled, deliberate, like every gesture was calculated. She remembered his eyes, cold, black, unreadable. He looked the same now. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a black suit that probably cost more than her father's car. His dark hair was combed back, his jaw sharp enough to cut glass. Handsome, she supposed, in the way a blade was handsome. Dangerous, precise. He didn't smile when she reached him. Richard placed her hand in Lucien's. His palm was warm, his grip firm. Not rough, but unyielding. Arya met his gaze and saw nothing. No warmth, no cruelty. Just ice. The priest began speaking. Latin, maybe. She wasn't sure. The words blurred together, meaningless. She heard herself repeat vows she didn't believe in. Heard Lucien do the same, his voice low and steady, devoid of emotion. You may kiss the bride. Lucien's hand came up to cup her jaw, his thumb brushing just beneath her chin. He tilted her face upward, and for a heartbeat she thought she saw something flicker in his expression, something almost human. Then his mouth was on hers, firm and claiming, and the moment was gone. The kiss was cold, clinical. It tasted like a contract being signed in blood. When he pulled back, his eyes locked onto hers. You're mine now, he said quietly, just loud enough for her to hear. Don't forget that. Arya's breath caught. Before she could respond, he turned away, leading her back down the aisle as applause echoed around them. Her hand was still trapped in his. She didn't try to pull away. There was no point. The reception was held at an estate on the outskirts of the city. Massive gates, manicured lawns, a mansion that looked more like a fortress. Armed men stood at every entrance, their eyes scanning constantly. Arya counted at least a dozen before she stopped looking. Inside, the house was elegant in a cold, impersonal way. Marble floors, high ceilings, artwork that probably cost more than most people made in a year. Everything was clean, expensive, untouchable, like a museum or a mausoleum. Lucien led her into a ballroom where tables had been arranged, where champagne flowed and guests mingled. She was introduced to people whose names she immediately forgot. Business associates, family. She wasn't sure which was which. They all had the same look, polite smiles that didn't reach their eyes, voices that carried weight, hands that felt too firm when they shook hers. Mrs. Moretti, an older man said, his accent thick, Italian maybe. A pleasure. Your husband is a lucky man. Arya forced a smile. Thank you. Lucien's hand settled on the small of her back, possessive. Enough, he said to the man, not rude, but final. The man nodded and moved away. You don't have to do that, Arya said quietly. Do what? Pretend to care what they think of me. Lucien's gaze slid to hers. I'm not pretending. He leaned in slightly, his breath warm against her ear. Every person in this room is watching you, judging, measuring. You're my wife now. That means you represent me. Act accordingly. And if I don't? His fingers pressed slightly harder against her back. Not painful, but pointed. Then we'll have a problem. Arya's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. She didn't know what she'd expected. Kindness? Compassion? This man had bought her like property. He didn't see her as a person, just another asset to control. The evening dragged on. Dinner was served, course after course of food she barely tasted. Speeches were made, toasts raised. Lucien remained at her side the entire time, his presence a constant weight. He didn't speak to her unless necessary, didn't touch her except when appearances demanded it. He was a statue carved from ice, and she was chained to him. When the last guest finally left, Arya felt the exhaustion hit her all at once. Her feet ached, her head pounded, and the dress felt like it was crushing her ribs. Come, Lucien said, standing. He offered his hand. She stared at it. Where? Our room? Her stomach twisted. I need a minute. You've had all evening. His tone didn't change, but there was steel beneath it. We're leaving. Arya stood slowly, ignoring his hand. She followed him through the house, up a grand staircase, down a hallway lined with closed doors. He stopped at the last one, pushed it open, and stepped aside. The room was huge, king-sized bed, dark furniture, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the estate grounds. Everything was immaculate, impersonal, cold. Your things have been brought up, Lucien said, nodding toward a set of luggage near the closet. The bathroom is through there. If you need anything, there's a phone on the nightstand. Arya turned to face him. What happens now? Now you sleep. Tomorrow, we talk. About what? Rules. He loosened his tie, his movements methodical. Expectations. How this is going to work. And if I don't agree to your rules? Lucien's eyes met hers, and for the first time she saw something flicker there. Not anger. Worse. Certainty. You will. He turned and walked toward the bathroom, shedding his jacket as he went. The door closed behind him, and Arya was alone. She stood there for a long moment, staring at the bed, at the room, at the life she'd been forced into. Then she moved to the window, pressing her palm against the cool glass. Beyond the estate walls, the city glittered in the distance. Freedom. A world she could no longer reach. She was a prisoner in a gilded cage. And the worst part? She had no idea if she'd ever find a way out. Woken, Arya woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and an empty bed beside her. She sat up slowly, disoriented, the events of yesterday crashing back into focus. The wedding. The reception. Lucien's voice in her ear. You're mine now. She pushed the covers back and stood, her body stiff from tension. She was still wearing the slip she'd changed into last night, white silk, too delicate, too bridal. She hated it. The bathroom was empty, no sign of Lucien. She showered quickly, scrubbing at her skin as if she could wash away the weight of yesterday. When she emerged, wrapped in a towel, she found a change of clothes laid out on the bed. Jeans, a sweater, undergarments, all her size. She dressed quickly, unnerved by how much he already knew about her. Downstairs the house was quiet. Too quiet. She wandered through hallways, past rooms she didn't enter, until she found the kitchen. Massive, modern, spotless. A woman stood at the counter, middle-aged, wearing an apron. "Mrs. Moretti," the woman said, startling slightly. "I didn't hear you come in. I'm Elena. I manage the household. Can I get you something? Breakfast?" "Just coffee," Arya said. "Please." Elena nodded, moving efficiently. Within minutes, a steaming cup sat in front of Arya. She wrapped her hands around it, grateful for the warmth. "Where is he?" Arya asked. "Mr. Moretti had business this morning. He'll return this afternoon." Elena hesitated. "He asked me to tell you to make yourself comfortable. Explore the house if you like." "Explore my prison, you mean?" Elena's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Sympathy, maybe, or pity. "It's a big house. Easy to feel lost at first." Arya didn't respond. She sipped her coffee and stared out the window at the grounds beyond. Chick. She spent the morning wandering. The house was enormous. 3 floors, more rooms than she could count. A library filled with books she suspected no one ever read. A gym that looked like it belonged in a professional training facility. An office with locked doors she didn't try to open. Everything was expensive, carefully maintained, and utterly soulless. She found herself back in the bedroom eventually, restless and angry. She tried the door leading to the hallway. Unlocked. She tried the windows. Locked. She pulled at the latches, frustration building, until her hands were shaking. "They don't open." Arya spun around. Lucien stood in the doorway, still wearing a suit, though his tie was loosened and his sleeves were rolled up. He looked tired. Or maybe that was just his face. Hard to tell. "How long have you been standing there?" she demanded. "Long enough." He stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "We need to talk. About your rules." Her voice dripped with sarcasm. "Yes." He moved to the sitting area near the windows, settling into a chair with the ease of someone who owned everything around him. Which, she supposed, he did. "Sit." "I'd rather stand." "Sit, Arya." The way he said her name, calm, controlled, absolute, made her skin prickle. She sat on the edge of the bed, as far from him as the room allowed. Lucien leaned back, his gaze steady. "You're angry. I understand that." "Do you?" "You feel trapped, powerless. You blame me for that." He paused. "You're not entirely wrong." Arya blinked, surprised by the admission. "But here's what you need to understand," Lucien continued. "This isn't a fairy tale. I didn't marry you because I love you. I married you because your father owed me, and this was the price. You're here because I decided you would be. That's not going to change. So I'm your property." "In a sense, yes." The bluntness of it stole her breath. "You're a monster." "Probably." He didn't seem bothered by the accusation. But I'm the monster keeping you alive. Your father's debts weren't just with me. There are people who would have hurt you, badly, if I hadn't intervened. This arrangement protects you. Protects me? Arya laughed, sharp and bitter. You locked me in a cage and called it protection. The world I live in doesn't care about your comfort, Arya. It cares about power, control. You're safer here than you would be anywhere else. I don't believe you. You don't have to. Lucian stood, moving toward her with slow, measured steps. But you will follow my rules. You will not leave this property without my permission. You will not contact anyone from your old life. You will not attempt to run. Arya's pulse hammered. And if I do? He stopped in front of her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. Then I'll find you, and you won't like what happens after that. You'd hurt me. No. His voice was soft, almost gentle. But I'd make sure you understood the consequences. There are worse things than pain, Arya. Remember that. She wanted to spit at him, to scream, to claw at that calm, emotionless mask. Instead, she forced herself to breathe. What do you want from me? Obedience, compliance. In public, you'll play the role of my wife. You'll smile when necessary, speak when spoken to, and make me look good. In private, he trailed off, his gaze flicking over her face. In private, I don't care what you think of me, but you will respect the rules. Or what? Or you'll learn why people fear my name. The threat hung between them, heavy and suffocating. Arya's hands clenched into fists, her nails biting into her palms. I hate you, she whispered. Lucien's expression didn't change. Good. Hate is honest. We can work with that. He turned and walked toward the door. Wait, Arya said, her voice cracking. That's it? You just lay out your rules and leave? He glanced back. What else is there to say? I don't know. Maybe explain why you did this. Why me? Lucian studied her for a long moment. Because your father gave me leverage I needed. Because having a wife changes how certain people perceive me. Because you were convenient. He paused. Does that help? No. Didn't think so. He opened the door, then stopped. Dinner is at 7. Dress appropriately. We have guests. I'm not your doll. Tonight you are. He left, the door clicking shut behind him. Arya sat there, shaking with rage and helplessness, until the sun began to set and Elena knocked softly to tell her it was time to get ready. The guests arrived at 7 sharp. 3 men, all wearing expensive suits, all carrying the same air of controlled menace. Arya sat beside Lucian at the dining table, her hands folded in her lap, her smile fixed in place. She'd chosen a simple black dress from the wardrobe that had mysteriously appeared in the closet. Elegant, modest, boring, exactly what Lucian probably wanted. The men talked business, shipments, territory. Someone named Victor who was becoming a problem. Arya listened without really hearing, her mind elsewhere. She was good at this, disappearing into herself while her body went through the motions. She'd learned that skill years ago, back when her father's drinking made home unbearable. Your wife is very quiet, one of the men said, his accent thick. Russian, maybe. He smiled at her, but it didn't reach his eyes. Shy? Observant, Lucian said smoothly. She knows when to speak and when to listen. A rare quality. The man raised his glass. You chose well, Moretti. Lucien's hand found hers beneath the table, his fingers curling around hers. A warning or a reassurance. She couldn't tell. I always do. The conversation moved on. Arya endured it, course after course, glass after glass of wine she barely touched. By the time dessert was served, her jaw ached from holding her smile. When the men finally left, Lucien walked them to the door. Arya stayed at the table, staring at her untouched plate. You did well tonight, Lucien said when he returned. Arya didn't look at him. I'm so glad I met your standards. Don't be petulant, it doesn't suit you. And playing dress-up for your business partners does? Lucien moved around the table, stopping beside her chair. You're angry again. I'm always angry, you just don't care. I care more than you think. He reached down, tilting her chin up with one finger. But anger won't save you, Arya. Compliance will. She jerked her face away. Don't touch me. I'm your husband. I'll touch you when I want. This isn't a real marriage. It's real enough. His voice dropped, softer, but no less commanding. Go upstairs. Get some rest. Tomorrow will be easier. Easier for who? For both of us. He walked away, leaving her alone in the dining room. Arya sat there until the candles burned low, until Elena appeared to clear the table, until the house fell silent around her. Then she went upstairs, climbed into the massive bed, and stared at the ceiling until exhaustion finally pulled her under. The days blurred together. Breakfast alone. Afternoons spent wandering the house or sitting in the library with books she couldn't focus on. Dinners where Lucien appeared asked her how her day was in a tone that suggested he didn't actually care, and then disappeared again into his office. She learned the rhythms of the house. Elena arrived at 6 every morning. 2 guards rotated shifts at the front gate. Lucien left early, returned late. He slept in the same bed but never touched her, staying on his side as if an invisible line divided them. Arya tested boundaries. She tried the gates. Locked. She asked Elena about the nearest town. 20 miles, too far to walk. She searched for car keys, found none. Every escape route led nowhere. On the 5th day, she tried to run anyway. It was stupid, impulsive, born of desperation. She waited until Lucien left, slipped out a side door and sprinted across the grounds toward the tree line beyond the walls. She made it maybe 100 yards before hands grabbed her from behind, yanking her to a stop. Mrs. Moretti, the guard's voice was flat. You need to come back inside. Let go of me. I can't do that. She fought, kicking and twisting, but he was twice her size and trained for this. He hauled her back toward the house, ignoring her screams, her curses, her desperate attempts to break free. By the time they reached the front door, Lucien was waiting. His expression was unreadable, cold, controlled, terrifying in its calm. Inside, he said quietly. The guard released her. Arya stumbled, catching herself against the doorframe. She expected yelling, violence, something. Instead, Lucien turned and walked inside. Follow me. She didn't move. He glanced back. Now, Arya. Something in his voice made her legs move. She followed him through the house, up the stairs, into the bedroom. He closed the door behind them and locked it. Sit, he said. No. Sit. Down. This time she obeyed, sinking onto the edge of the bed, her heart hammered, her breath coming too fast. Lucien stood in front of her, hands in his pockets, his gaze boring into her. What did I tell you? Not to run. And what did you do? I tried. Yes, you tried. He crouched in front of her, bringing them eye level. Do you know what happens to people who run from me, Arya? She swallowed hard. You find them. Always. His voice was soft, almost gentle. And then I make sure they never run again. Are you going to hurt me? No. He reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face. The gesture was oddly tender, completely at odds with the steel in his eyes. But you need to understand something. You belong to me, not in some abstract way. Actually, completely. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be. I'll never accept it. Then you'll keep suffering. He stood, moving toward the door. You're not leaving this room for the next 3 days. Elena will bring you meals. You want freedom? Earn it. Prove you can be trusted. This is insane. This is reality. He unlocked the door. Learn to live with it. He left. The lock clicked behind him. Arya sat there, trembling, as the full weight of her situation crashed down. She wasn't getting out. Not by running, not by fighting, not by hoping someone would rescue her. She was trapped, and the man who owned her would not let her go. 3 days locked in a room taught Arya more about herself than she wanted to know. She learned that silence could be its own kind of torture, that Elena's pitying looks when she delivered meals were somehow worse than Lucien's cold control, that defiance, when met with absolute power, became exhausting. By the 3rd evening, when Lucien finally unlocked the door and found her sitting by the window, Arya didn't even turn around. Have you learned anything? He asked. That you're exactly what everyone says you are. And what's that? A bastard who gets off on control. Lucien crossed the room, his footsteps measured. He stopped beside her chair but didn't sit. Control keeps people alive in my world. Chaos gets them killed. Your world, Arya repeated, finally looking up at him. I didn't ask to be part of it. No, but you're here anyway. He studied her face, and something shifted in his expression, not quite softness, but a fraction less rigid. I'm releasing you from this room. You'll have access to the house again, the grounds, supervised, but if you run, I know, you'll find me. She stood facing him. I'm not stupid, Lucien. I know I can't escape. You've made that very clear. Then why did you try? Because staying still felt like dying. The honesty surprised them both. Lucien's jaw tightened, and for a moment Arya thought she saw something flicker behind his eyes. Understanding, maybe, or recognition. Dying would be easier than what happens if you cross me again, he said quietly. Remember that. He left her there, and Arya pressed her forehead against the cool glass, watching his reflection disappear. The next morning, Arya woke to find Lucien already gone and a note on his pillow. Elegant handwriting, brief and to the point. Breakfast on the terrace. Join me if you want. She almost ignored it out of spite. But hunger won, and 20 minutes later she found herself stepping onto a stone terrace overlooking manicured gardens. Lucien sat at a wrought iron table, reading something on a tablet, a cup of espresso at his elbow. He glanced up when she appeared. You came. You said if I wanted. Arya pulled out a chair across from him. I wanted coffee. Honest? The corner of his mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. I can work with that. Elena appeared with a tray, fresh pastries, fruit, another espresso. Arya accepted it gratefully, wrapping her hands around the warm cup. They ate in silence for a while. Not comfortable exactly, but less hostile than before. Arya found herself watching him when she thought he wasn't paying attention. The way he held himself, always controlled, always aware. The scar that traced along his left hand barely visible. The shadows under his eyes that suggested he slept as poorly as she did. You're staring, Lucien said without looking up. So are you. You've been reading the same page for 5 minutes. He set the tablet down, his gaze meeting hers. What do you want to know? Everything. Nothing. I don't know. Arya broke off a piece of croissant, not eating it. Why do people fear you so much? Because I've given them reasons to. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. Lucien leaned back in his chair. You want pretty stories, Arya? Justifications? I don't have them. I do what needs to be done. People remember that. You mean you hurt people? Sometimes. When they leave me no choice. And my father? Did he leave you no choice? Lucien's expression hardened. Your father made his own choices. Gambling away money he didn't have, borrowing from people who don't forget debts. I offered him a way out. He took it. By selling me. By protecting you from people far worse than me. He stood, draining the last of his espresso. I have a meeting in an hour. You can stay here or go inside. Your choice. Will I always have such thrilling options? Get used to disappointment. He paused at the door. There's a library on the second floor, East Wing. If you're going to sulk, at least do it somewhere comfortable. Then he was gone, leaving Arya alone with her coffee and a view of a prison disguised as paradise. She found the library an hour later. It was smaller than she expected, but infinitely more personal than the rest of the house. Floor-to-ceiling shelves, a leather sofa near a fireplace, windows that let in soft morning light, books everywhere. Fiction, history, philosophy. Someone actually read these. She ran her fingers along the spines, surprised by the variety. Mr. Moretti's mother collected most of those. Arya spun around. Elena stood in the doorway, a basket of cleaning supplies in her hands. I didn't know he had a mother, Arya said, then immediately felt stupid. I mean, everyone has a mother. Elena's smile was sad. His died when he was young. She loved books. He keeps this room exactly as she left it. Arya looked around with new eyes. The personal touches suddenly made sense. A bookmark still wedged in a worn copy of Tolstoy. A reading lamp positioned just so. A knitted blanket draped over the sofa's arm. He never comes in here, Elena continued. Says it's a waste of space, but he won't let anyone change it either. Why are you telling me this? Elena set her basket down, her expression careful. Because you look at him like he's a monster. And maybe he is. But monsters are made, Mrs. Moretti, not born. That doesn't excuse what he's done, what he's doing. No, but it might help you understand it. Elena picked up her basket. There's tea in the kitchen if you want it. Just ask. She left Arya alone with ghosts and books and the uncomfortable realization that the man who owned her might be more complicated than she wanted to believe. Days passed. Arya fell into a routine that felt less like living and more like existing. Mornings on the terrace when Lucian was there, which wasn't often. Afternoons in the library or wandering the grounds with a guard, trailing 20 feet behind. Evenings alone unless Lucian had guests, in which case she played her role. Smile, speak when spoken to, pretend everything was fine. She learned things about him in fragments. He drank his coffee black, worked late into the night, his office light visible from the bedroom window, took calls at odd hours in languages she didn't understand, never raised his voice even when the conversation sounded tense. And he never touched her, not since that first kiss at the altar. He slept on his side of the bed, woke before her, and was gone before she could pretend to still be asleep. It should have been a relief. Instead, it felt like another kind of rejection, like she wasn't even worth his attention beyond the role she played. 2 weeks into her captivity, she refused to call it marriage. Everything changed. It started with a phone call. Arya was in the library, curled up with a novel she wasn't really reading, when she heard raised voices from downstairs. Lucien's office was directly below. The floors were thick, the house well insulated, but anger carried. She shouldn't have listened, should have stayed put, minded her own business. Instead, she set the book down and moved to the door, pressing her ear against it. I don't care what Victor thinks he's owed, Lucien's voice sharp with restrained fury. He crossed a line. You tell him if he comes near my territory again, I'll personally... A pause. Someone speaking on the other end. No, absolutely not. We settled this last year. Another pause, longer this time. Then he's chosen war. So be it. The call ended. Silence. Then the sound of something heavy hitting a wall. Arya flinched, stepping back from the door. When Lucien appeared at dinner that night, his knuckles were bruised, and there was a coldness in his eyes she hadn't seen before. He barely looked at her, eating mechanically, his mind clearly elsewhere. What happened? Arya asked, surprising herself. Nothing that concerns you. You look like you punched a wall. I did. He set his fork down. Drop it, Arya. Why? I'm your wife, remember? Part of your world now, whether I like it or not. Lucien's gaze snapped to hers. You want to know what happened? Fine. Someone I used to do business with decided our agreement didn't matter anymore. He's making moves into territory I control, threatening people under my protection. So now I have to decide whether to negotiate or eliminate the problem. Eliminate? You mean kill? I mean remove the threat, however necessary. Arya's stomach turned. You talk about it like it's nothing. Because to me, it is. He stood, his chair scraping against the floor. You want to live in fantasy where people settle disputes with conversations and handshakes? That's not the world I'm in. That's not the world you're in anymore. I didn't ask for this world. And yet here you are. He moved toward the door, then stopped. There's going to be a meeting here tomorrow night. Important people, dangerous people. You'll be present. You'll be perfect. Understand? And if I'm not, then they'll see weakness, and weakness gets exploited. His voice dropped. I won't let that happen. He left. Arya sat alone at the table, her appetite gone, her mind spinning. The next evening, Arya dressed carefully. A navy dress, elegant but not flashy. Hair pulled back, minimal jewelry. She looked at herself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman staring back. Polished, controlled, empty. The guests arrived at 8. 5 men this time, all radiating the same predatory energy. They gathered in Lucien's study, a room Arya had never been allowed to enter. Tonight she followed Lucien inside and understood why. The space was all dark wood and leather, maps on the walls marked with pins and notes, a desk covered in papers she couldn't read from her position by the door. This wasn't just an office, it was a war room. Lucien gestured to a chair in the corner. Sit. Don't speak unless spoken to. Arya obeyed, feeling the weight of 5 pairs of eyes assessing her. One of the men smiled, but it was the kind of smile that made her skin crawl. So this is the wife, he said, his accent thick, Eastern European. Pretty, quiet. Good choice, Moretti. Can we focus? Lucian's tone was ice. Victor's moving product through the east side. My sources say he's meeting with the Colombians next week. Then we hit him before the meeting, another man said, older, gray-haired with scars on his hands. Send a message. Too obvious. Victor's expecting that. Lucien leaned against his desk, arms crossed. We need leverage, something he values more than territory. His brother, the smiling man suggested. Word is Victor's got him stashed in a safe house upstate. Too far, and kidnapping family members opens doors we don't want opened. Lucien's gaze flicked to Arya just for a second before returning to the group. We go through his suppliers, cut off his resources, make him weak before we move. They talked for another hour. Strategy, logistics, contingencies. Arya listened, horrified and fascinated in equal measure. These men discuss violence the way other people discuss business deals. Casual, clinical, necessary. When the meeting finally ended and the men filed out, Lucien walked them to the door. Arya stayed in the study, staring at the maps, the pins, the careful organization of chaos. You handled that well, Lucien said when he returned. Arya didn't look at him. You're planning to destroy someone's life. I'm protecting what's mine by hurting other people, by doing what needs to be done. He moved closer, and she could feel the heat of him at her back. You think I like this? You think I enjoy the constant maneuvering, the threats, the weight of knowing one wrong move could get people killed? Then why do it? Because someone has to. Because the alternative is chaos. His voice softened just slightly. You see a monster. I see someone trying to maintain order in a world that doesn't want it. Arya turned to face him. That's a convenient way to justify... She didn't get to finish. The window shattered behind her, glass exploding inward. Lucien moved before her brain could process what was happening, his body slamming into hers, driving her to the ground as something whistled overhead. Gunfire. Actual gunfire. They hit the floor hard, Lucien covering her with his weight. More shots, rapid and close. Shouts from outside. The sound of guards returning fire. Stay down, Lucien ordered, his voice deadly calm despite the chaos. He pulled a gun from somewhere, his jacket maybe, and moved toward the shattered window in a crouch. Arya's ears rang. Her heart hammered so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. She pressed herself flat against the floor, glass cutting into her palms. The shooting stopped as suddenly as it started. Silence, heavy and ringing. Then voices. Lucien's guards shouting all clear. Lucien turned back to her. Are you hurt? Arya couldn't speak, could barely breathe. She shook her head. You're bleeding. He holstered the gun and dropped to his knees beside her, taking her hands. Blood welled from a dozen small cuts where the glass had embedded. Come on, let's get you out of here. He pulled her to her feet, one arm around her waist, supporting her weight as her legs threatened to give out. They moved through the house quickly, past guards securing the perimeter, up the stairs, into the bedroom. Lucien locked the door behind them and guided her to the bathroom. Sit. She sat on the edge of the tub, shaking violently now that the adrenaline was crashing. Lucien knelt in front of her, a first aid kit appearing from under the sink. He worked in silence, removing glass shards with tweezers, cleaning the wounds with antiseptic that stung but she barely felt. Who was that? Arya managed. Victor, sending a message of his own. Lucien's jaw was tight, his movements precise. He's escalating faster than I expected. They could have killed us. They weren't aiming for us, just trying to rattle me. He wrapped gauze around her palms, his touch surprisingly gentle. It worked. Arya stared at him. You're rattled? You could have been hit. That glass. He stopped, his hand stilling on hers. I should have seen this coming, should have had better security. This isn't your fault. Everything that happens in this house is my fault. He finished bandaging her hands and stood, putting distance between them. You should rest. I'll sleep in another room tonight. Why? Because you just got shot at because of me. You don't need me hovering. Wait. Arya stood, her legs steadier now. Earlier, when you covered me, you could have been hit. That's my job, protecting you. Your job, she repeated slowly. That's all I am? A job? Lucian's expression closed off. What do you want me to say, Arya? I don't know. Maybe that you gave a damn whether I lived or died. Of course I give a damn. You're my wife. On paper. In every way that matters in my world. He moved toward the door. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we'll increase security. This won't happen again. Lucien, I said get some sleep. He left, the door closing with a finality that felt like a wall going up. Arya stood there, bandaged hands throbbing, her mind reeling from everything that had just happened. She'd been shot at. Lucien had thrown himself between her and danger without hesitation, and beneath all his control, she'd seen something crack. Fear. Not for himself. For her. She climbed into bed, staring at the ceiling, and for the first time since this nightmare began, she wondered if the monster she'd married might actually be human after all. The next morning, the house was transformed. Guards everywhere, new cameras, reinforced windows. Lucian was gone before she woke, but Elena brought breakfast and news. Mr. Moretti wants you to stay inside today. No grounds, no terrace. I'm a prisoner again. You're being protected. Elena set the tray down. 2 men tried to breach the perimeter last night. The guards stopped them, but Mr. Moretti isn't taking chances. Arya's stomach dropped. Is he okay? He's fine. Angry, but fine. Elena hesitated. He cares about you, you know. More than he probably should. He has a strange way of showing it. He's had a strange life, Mrs. Moretti. Not many people survive what he's survived. Arya wanted to ask what that meant, but Elena was already leaving. She spent the morning alone, restless and anxious. Every sound made her jump. Every shadow felt like a threat. By afternoon, she'd had enough. She left the bedroom, wandered the halls, and found herself outside Lucien's office. The door was closed, but she could hear his voice inside. Not angry this time. Tired. I understand the risk, but she stays here. No, I'm not sending her away. That's final. A pause. Because she's safer with me than anywhere else. Yes, I'm sure. Just increase the perimeter and vet everyone who comes through those gates. Another pause. Longer. I know what I'm doing. Shut it down before it escalates further. I'll handle Victor personally if I have to. The call ended. Arya knocked before she could talk herself out of it. Come in. She opened the door. Lucian sat behind his desk, looking more exhausted than she'd ever seen him. Papers everywhere, his jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up. He'd been here all night, she realized, hadn't slept. You should be resting, he said. So should you. She closed the door behind her. I heard what you said. About not sending me away. You were eavesdropping. Your office has thin walls. She moved closer. Why keep me here if it's dangerous? Because sending you somewhere else would make you a target. Here, I can control the variables. Protect you. He ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of frustration. Out there, you're vulnerable. And you care about that. His eyes met hers. Yes. The simple admission hung between them. No deflection, no walls, just honesty. I don't understand you, Arya said quietly. You lock me up, make rules, treat me like property, but then you throw yourself in front of bullets for me. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. They should be. Maybe in your world, not in mine. Lucien stood, rounding the desk. You're here because I forced you to be, but you're also here because I won't let anyone hurt you. Both can be true. Arya wanted to argue, to push back, but exhaustion and confusion overwhelmed her. I'm tired of being angry at you. Then stop. It's not that simple. Why not? He stopped in front of her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back. You're stuck here either way. You can hate me and be miserable, or you can accept this and find a way to live with it. Live with being your prisoner. Live with being my wife. His hand came up, cupping her jaw. The touch was gentle, almost careful. I'm not asking you to love me, Arya. I'm asking you to survive this. With me, not against me. Her breath caught. His thumb brushed her cheekbone, and she hated how much that simple touch affected her. What happens if I say yes? Then we stop pretending this is temporary. We stop fighting each other and start working together. His voice dropped. And maybe we both stop being so damn lonely. The vulnerability in that last sentence shattered something inside her. She'd been so focused on her own pain, her own loss, that she hadn't considered his. A man who lived surrounded by people but trusted none of them, who slept alone in a house full of guards, who'd built an empire on fear and control because it was the only language he knew. I need time, she whispered. Take it. He released her, stepping back. But while you're deciding, know this. I will keep you safe, no matter what it costs. That's not negotiable. Why? Because you're mine, and I protect what's mine. It should have sounded possessive. It did sound possessive. But underneath the words, Arya heard something else, something almost like desperation. She left him there, her mind spinning, her carefully constructed hatred beginning to crack. That night, Arya couldn't sleep. She lay in the dark, listening to Lucian's steady breathing from the other side of the bed. He'd returned to their room despite saying he wouldn't, slipping in after midnight like a ghost. She'd pretended to be asleep, but every nerve in her body was aware of him, the heat of him, the controlled stillness that never quite left, even in rest. His words kept circling in her mind. I protect what's mine. Not who, what. Like she was still just an object, a possession. But then she remembered the way he'd looked at her in his office, that flash of something raw and unguarded. The way his thumb had traced her cheekbone like she might break. She turned onto her side, studying his profile in the darkness. Strong jaw, sharp cheekbones, the kind of face that belonged on Roman coins or Renaissance paintings. Beautiful in a cold, carved way. But there were cracks in the marble now. She could see them. You're staring again, Lucian said without opening his eyes. Arya's breath hitched. I thought you were asleep. I don't sleep much. He turned his head, meeting her gaze. What are you thinking about? How much I should hate you, how much I actually do. And what's the verdict? Still deciding. She pulled the blanket higher. Why did you really come back to this room? Because Victor knows you exist now, knows you matter. That makes you a target. His voice was quiet, matter of fact. If someone gets past my guards, they'll come here first. I need to be here when they do. So you're my bodyguard now. I've always been your bodyguard. You just didn't realize it. Arya processed that. You're afraid. Cautious, there's a difference. No, you're afraid. I can hear it. She shifted closer without meaning to. What happened to your mother? Lucian went still. That's not relevant. Elena said she died when you were young, that you keep her library exactly as she left it. Arya's voice softened. What happened? For a long moment she thought he wouldn't answer. Then his jaw tightened and words came out like they were being pulled from somewhere deep and painful. She was killed. I was 12. They made it look like a robbery, but it wasn't. It was a message to my father. He stared at the ceiling. He was in deep with people he couldn't control. They wanted him to remember his place, so they took the person he loved most. Arya's chest constricted. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was a long time ago. But his voice carried weight that suggested time hadn't dulled anything. My father never recovered. He became reckless, desperate, got himself killed 2 years later. Left me with nothing but debts and enemies. You were 14. 14 and very aware that weakness gets you killed. So I learned not to be weak. He finally looked at her. I learned to be what this world required, controlled, ruthless, untouchable. Lonely, Arya added quietly. Lucian's expression flickered. That too. They lay there in the darkness, the space between them somehow smaller than before. Arya felt something shift in her chest, a loosening of the tight knot of anger she'd been carrying. He was still a bastard, still the man who'd forced her into this life. But he was also a boy who'd watched his mother die and learned that love was a liability. I won't let that happen to you, Lucian said suddenly. Whatever Victor's planning, whatever comes next, you'll be protected. I swear it. Why does it matter so much? Because I've already failed to protect too many people. His hand found hers beneath the covers, his fingers threading through hers carefully, avoiding the bandages. I won't add you to that list. Arya's throat tightened. She should pull away, should maintain the distance, the walls. Instead, she held on. They fell asleep like that, hands linked in the dark. Two people who didn't trust each other, learning what it felt like to try. Well, the next week passed in strange suspension. Victor's attacks stopped, but the tension didn't ease. If anything, it got worse. Lucienne disappeared for hours at a time, returning with tight shoulders and darker moods. Guards doubled, then tripled. Every car that passed the estate was tracked, every delivery inspected. Arya found herself watching for him, listening for his footsteps. When he was gone, the house felt too empty, too quiet. When he returned, something in her chest loosened, and she hated that she felt relief. They started having dinner together. Not every night, but often enough that it became routine. He'd ask about her day, and she'd tell him about the books she read, the gardens she walked. He'd talk about business in vague terms, carefully editing out the violence, but letting her glimpse the strategy. The chess game he was playing with people's lives. "Victor's gone quiet," Lucienne said one evening, cutting into a steak with precise movements. "That worries me more than the attacks did. Maybe he gave up." "Men like Victor don't give up. They regroup." He set his fork down. "Something's coming. I can feel it." "Your instincts are that good?" "They've kept me alive this long." He studied her across the table. "You look different." "Different how?" "Less like you want to stab me with your dinner knife." Arya glanced at the knife in question. "The night's still young." His mouth twitched, almost a smile. "There she is." "Who?" "The fighter. I was wondering when she'd come back." He leaned back in his chair. "You've been too quiet lately, compliant. It doesn't suit you. Maybe I'm learning to pick my battles. Or maybe you're planning something." His eyes glinted. "Are you planning something, Arya? If I was, would I tell you?" "Probably not, but I'd find out anyway." He stood, moving around the table with that predatory grace that made her pulse kick. He stopped behind her chair, close enough that she could feel the heat of him. "I'm not your enemy. You're the man who bought me. I'm the man keeping you alive." His hand settled on her shoulder, thumb brushing the exposed skin at the base of her neck. "There's a difference." Arya's breath caught. "Don't." "Don't what?" "Touch me like that, like you have the right." "I'm your husband. I have every right." But his hand lifted anyway, retreating. "Though I won't. Not unless you ask." "I'll never ask." "Never's a long time." He moved away, and she hated the loss of warmth. "I have calls to make. Don't wait up." He left her sitting there, skin tingling where he'd touched her, confusion and anger warring in her chest. The breaking point came 3 days later. Arya was in the library, curled up with a book she wasn't reading, when shouting erupted from downstairs. Not Lucien's voice, someone else's. Panicked, urgent. She set the book down and moved to the door, heart hammering. The shouting grew louder, multiple voices now, all talking over each other. Then Lucien's voice cut through, sharp as a blade. "Where?" "The East Warehouse. They hit it 20 minutes ago. Burned everything." "Casualties?" 3 dead, 5 injured. They knew exactly when the shipment was arriving." Silence. Then Lucien, his voice so cold it made Arya's blood freeze. "Someone talked. Find out who, and bring Victor's brother to me. Now." "Lucien, if we grab his brother, I said now." Footsteps. Doors slamming, then quiet. Arya stood frozen in the hallway, her mind reeling. 3 dead. Victor's brother. This was escalating into something she couldn't ignore, couldn't pretend wasn't real. She found Lucien in his study, standing at the window, hands braced against the frame. His shoulders were rigid, his entire body coiled like a spring about to snap. "You shouldn't be here," he said without turning around. "I heard what happened." "Then you know this isn't the time. You're going to kidnap his brother." "I'm going to do what's necessary to end this." He turned, and the look on his face made her step back. This wasn't the controlled man she'd grown used to. This was something raw and dangerous. "Victor killed 3 of my people, burned a warehouse worth millions. He's pushing for war, so I'm giving him one." by stooping to his level. There is no high ground in my world, Arya. There's only survival. He moved toward her, and she held her ground even though every instinct screamed to run. You want to judge me? Fine. But do it from the safety I've provided. Do it from behind walls I've built and guards I've paid for. I didn't ask for any of this. No, you asked for nothing. You wanted your quiet life, your normal existence. Well, that's gone. This is your life now. Blood and violence and hard choices. He stopped inches from her, his voice dropping. You can hate me for it, but you can't change it. I'm not asking you to change it. I'm asking you not to become the thing you're fighting. I became that thing a long time ago. He turned away. Go back upstairs. Lock the door. Don't come out until I tell you. Lucien, go, now. The finality in his voice left no room for argument. Arya fled, her hands shaking, her mind screaming that everything was about to get so much worse. She spent the next 6 hours locked in the bedroom, pacing like a caged animal. Night fell. The house stayed quiet, but it was the kind of quiet that preceded storms. Oppressive. Suffocating. Around midnight, she heard cars arriving, doors slamming, voices, muffled but tense. She pressed her ear to the door but couldn't make out words. Just the low rumble of men talking, arguing maybe. Then a scream, short, cut off almost immediately but unmistakable. Arya's blood ran cold. She backed away from the door, her pulse thundering in her ears. Whatever was happening downstairs, it was exactly what she'd feared. Lucien had crossed a line and there was no going back. She didn't know how much time passed. Could have been minutes, could have been hours. Eventually, she heard footsteps in the hallway. Heavy, tired. The door unlocked. Lucien stepped inside and locked it behind him. His shirt was untucked, sleeves rolled up, and there was blood on his hands. Not a lot, but enough. He looked exhausted, hollow. Is he dead? Arya whispered. No, but he wishes he was. Lucien moved to the bathroom, turning on the sink. Water ran. Victor will get the message. He'll back off or he'll escalate. Either way, we'll know soon. You tortured him. I questioned him, aggressively. He scrubbed his hands, the water running pink. He'll live. Can't say the same for the man who sold us out. Arya's stomach turned. You killed him. He got 3 of my people killed. Yes, I dealt with it. Lucien dried his hands, meeting her eyes in the mirror. You want to run now? This is your chance. I'm too tired to stop you. She should run, should bolt for the door, take her chances with the guards, with the night, with anything but this. Instead, she found herself moving closer. Why are your hands shaking? She asked. Lucien looked down at his hands. They were trembling, just slightly. I don't know. Yes, you do. He gripped the edge of the sink. Because this used to be easier. Because I used to not care, and now... He stopped, his jaw working. Now what? Now you're here, and you look at me like I'm a monster, and I hate that it matters. He turned, leaning back against the sink. I hate that I care what you think, that I want you to see something in me besides this. Arya's breath caught. Then show me something else. There is nothing else. This is who I am. I don't believe that. She stepped closer, close enough to see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight he carried. You kept your mother's library. You protect people. You could have let me go weeks ago, sent me away where I'd be safer, but you didn't. Because I'm selfish. Because I wanted you here. Why? Because for the first time in years, I don't feel alone. The confession came out raw, unguarded. You hate me, fear me, probably fantasize about killing me in my sleep. But you're real. You push back. You don't pretend. Everyone else in my life is either afraid of me or trying to use me. You're just... you. Arya's throat tightened. She reached out slowly, carefully, and took one of his still trembling hands. His fingers were cold despite the warm water. I don't fantasize about killing you anymore. Progress. His attempt at humor fell flat. Lucien. She waited until he looked at her. I'm not going to lie and say I'm okay with what you did tonight. I'm not. It terrifies me. But I also understand why you did it. Understanding doesn't equal acceptance. No, but it's a start. She squeezed his hand. You said you wanted me to survive this with you, not against you. So teach me. Help me understand your world instead of just throwing me into it. Something shifted in his expression. Hope, maybe, or something close to it. You mean that? I'm still here, aren't I? He pulled her closer, his other hand coming up to cup her face. You're still here, he repeated, like he couldn't quite believe it. His thumb brushed her cheekbone, and this time she didn't pull away. Arya, Papa. Whatever he was going to say was cut off by his phone ringing. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and his expression hardened. I have to take this. He answered, stepping away. Talk to me. A pause. When? Another pause. Longer. Lock it down. Double the security. I'm on my way. He ended the call and looked at her. Victor's moving. He's planning something for tomorrow night. I need to go. Now? It's past midnight. This can't wait. He grabbed a clean shirt from the closet, changing quickly. Stay inside tomorrow. Don't open the door for anyone except Elena or me, understand? What's happening tomorrow night? A meeting. Everyone who matters in this city will be there. Victor's going to make his move, and I need to be ready. He strapped a shoulder holster on, checking the gun before sliding it into place. I'll have guards on the house. You'll be safe. What about you? He paused, looking at her. Worried about me? Don't let it go to your head. His mouth curved, just slightly. Too late. He crossed to her, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Brief, but it sent heat through her entire body. Lock the door behind me. Then he was gone, leaving Arya alone with the ghost of his touch, and a fear she didn't want to name. The next day crawled by. Arya tried to read to distract herself, but nothing held her attention. Elena brought meals she didn't eat. Guards changed shifts outside. The house felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for something terrible. Evening came. Lucien hadn't returned, hadn't called. Arya stood at the bedroom window, watching the sun set, anxiety building in her chest. Something was wrong. She could feel it. At 8 o'clock, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. If you want to see your husband alive, come to the address below. Alone. 1 hour. Tell anyone and he dies. Arya's blood turned to ice. Below the message was an address across the city. Her hands shook so badly she almost dropped the phone. This was a trap. Obviously a trap. Victor had Lucien and was using him to draw her out. She should call someone. The guards. Elena. Anyone. But what if it was real? What if Lucien was actually in danger and she was his only chance? Her mind raced through options, all of them bad. If she told the guards, they'd lock her down and maybe get Lucien killed. If she went alone, she'd probably get them both killed. If she did nothing, she couldn't do nothing. Arya grabbed a jacket and slipped out of the bedroom. The hallway was empty. She moved quickly, quietly, avoiding the main stairs. There was a service entrance near the kitchen that Elena used for deliveries. If she could reach it without being seen. Mrs. Moretti? Arya spun. One of the guards stood at the end of the hall, his expression confused. You shouldn't be down here. I need some air, just the terrace. Mr. Moretti said you stay inside. Mr. Moretti isn't here. She forced confidence into her voice. I'm going to the terrace. You can watch me from the door if you want. The guard hesitated, then nodded. 5 minutes. Arya walked toward the terrace doors, pulse hammering. The moment the guard turned to check his phone, she bolted. Through the kitchen, out the service entrance, across the dark grounds toward the side gate she'd noticed during her walks. She could hear shouting behind her. The guards had noticed. She ran harder, her breath burning in her lungs. The gate was locked, but it was old, decorative. She climbed, her hands screaming in protest as the bandages tore, and dropped to the other side just as flashlight beams swept the area. She ran into the night, into the city, toward an address that would either save Lucien or destroy them both. The building was abandoned, warehouse district, all broken windows and rusted metal. Arya approached slowly, every survival instinct screaming at her to run the other way. But the image of Lucien hurt, alone, waiting for help kept her moving forward. She pushed through a side door. Inside was darkness, the smell of old concrete and decay. Hello? Lights flooded on, blinding her. Arya threw up a hand, squinting. As her eyes adjusted, she saw them. Men, at least a dozen, all armed. And in the center, tied to a chair, was Lucien. His face was bruised, blood at the corner of his mouth, but his eyes were alert. When he saw her, something between relief and horror crossed his expression. "Arya, run!" A fist connected with his jaw, cutting him off. "Mrs. Moretti." A man stepped forward, older, silver-haired, with a smile that made her skin crawl. "Victor." "So good of you to join us." Arya's mind raced. "Let him go. You wanted me. Here I am." "Oh, I don't want you, dear girl. I want him broken. And you're the key to that." Victor circled Lucien's chair. "You see, men like Moretti, they build walls, make themselves untouchable, but everyone has a weakness. I just had to find his." "She's not my weakness," Lucien ground out. "She's nothing." The words should have hurt. Instead, Arya understood. He was trying to protect her, trying to make Victor think she didn't matter. Victor laughed. "Please, I've had eyes on you for weeks. The way you look at her, the extra guards, you're transparent, Moretti." He pulled out a gun, pressing it to Lucien's temple. "Here's how this works. I kill you in front of her, let her watch. Then I decide what to do with the widow. Maybe sell her, maybe keep her. Either way, your empire crumbles without you, and I take what's mine." "You'll start a war," Lucien said calmly, despite the gun. "Kill me, and every family I'm allied with will come for you. Let them come. I'll be ready." Victor's finger moved to the trigger. "Wait!" Arya's voice cut through the tension. "You want to break him? Then use me. But don't kill him. Make him watch. Make him live with it. That's real power." Victor paused, considering. Lucien's eyes went wide with horror. "Arya, don't—" "She's right," Victor said slowly. "Death is mercy. Living with failure, with shame, that's punishment." He lowered the gun from Lucien's head and pointed it at Arya instead. "Come here, Mrs. Moretti." Arya moved forward on shaking legs. She had no plan, no weapon, no escape. She just knew that if she could keep Victor talking, keep his attention on her, maybe Lucien's people would find them. Maybe there was still a chance. She stopped in front of Victor, meeting his eyes. "If you're going to do this, at least untie him. Let him try to save me. That's real cruelty, isn't it? Letting him fail?" Victor's smile widened. "I like the way you think." He nodded to his men. "Cut him loose." The moment Lucien's hands were free, everything erupted into chaos. Lucien moved like violence given form. The second his hands were free, he drove his elbow into the throat of the man nearest him, grabbed the knife from his belt, and buried it in Victor's gun hand before anyone could blink. Victor screamed, the weapon clattering to the concrete. Arya dove for it, her hands closing around cold metal just as someone grabbed her from behind. She twisted, brought the gun up, and fired without thinking. The shot went wild, but the man released her, stumbling back. Gunfire erupted. Arya hit the ground, covering her head as bullets tore through the air above her. She could hear Lucien's voice cutting through the chaos, sharp commands to people she couldn't see. Then hands were on her again, pulling her up, dragging her behind a stack of crates. "Stay down," Lucien ordered, blood streaming from a cut above his eye. He had a gun now, taken from somewhere, and he fired twice over the crates. Two men dropped. "Your people, where are they?" Arya gasped. "Coming. I triggered a distress signal when they cut me loose." He glanced at her, and even in the middle of a firefight, she saw something raw in his eyes. "You shouldn't have come." "You're welcome." He almost smiled. Then more gunfire, closer this time, and he shoved her flat as bullets shredded the crates above them. Wood splinters rained down. Arya tasted blood, realized she'd bitten her lip. "We need to move," Lucien said. "When I say go, you run for that door. Don't stop, don't look back." "What about you?" "I'll be right behind you." He checked his ammunition. 3, 2, 1, go. Arya ran. Her legs felt like water. Her lungs burned, but she ran. Behind her, Lucien's gun barked 3 times in rapid succession. She heard men shouting, cursing. She reached the door, slammed through it into an alley that stank of garbage and rain. Lucien was there a heartbeat later, grabbing her hand, pulling her into a sprint. They rounded a corner and nearly collided with 3 of Victor's men. Lucien didn't hesitate. He fired twice, dropped 2, and drove his fist into the third man's face with enough force that Arya heard bone crack. "This way." He dragged her down another alley, through a gap in a chain-link fence, across a street where a car screeched to a halt to avoid hitting them. Arya's vision blurred at the edges, adrenaline and terror mixing into something that felt like drowning on dry land. They reached a building, condemned, windows boarded, and Lucien kicked in a side door. Inside was darkness and the smell of mold. He pulled her into a corner, pressing her against the wall, his body shielding hers. "Stay quiet," he whispered against her ear. Arya nodded, too breathless to speak. She could feel his heart hammering against her back, as fast as her own. Outside, voices passed by. Flashlight beams swept through broken windows. Victor's men, searching. Lucian's hand covered her mouth gently when her breathing hitched too loud. She forced herself to slow down, to match his rhythm. In, out. "Steady, don't panic." The voices faded, the flashlights moved on. Lucian's hand dropped from her mouth, but he didn't step back. "Are you hurt?" "I don't think so. You?" "Nothing that matters." He finally moved, creating space between them, and pulled out his phone. The screen was cracked but still functional. He typed something, waited, then cursed under his breath. "No signal." "Where are we?" "South Industrial District, maybe 3 miles from the estate." He moved to a window, carefully looking out. "My people will be sweeping the area, but we need to stay put until I can make contact." Arya slid down the wall to sit on the filthy floor, her legs giving out. Adrenaline was crashing, leaving her shaky and cold. "That was insane. That was you being reckless." Lucian crouched in front of her, his expression hard. "You could have been killed. You should have stayed at the estate." "They said they'd kill you if I told anyone." "And you believed them?" "Arya, it was obviously a trap." "I know that." Her voice came out sharper than intended. "But what if it wasn't? What if they actually had you and I did nothing?" "Then I would have handled it." "You were tied to a chair with a gun to your head. You weren't handling anything." Luciet's jaw tightened. "I've been in worse situations." "That's supposed to make me feel better?" Arya pushed herself to her feet, anger flooding through the fear. "You're not invincible, Lucian. You bleed. You can die. And I couldn't just sit in that house waiting to find out if tonight was the night someone finally got to you." "So you walked into a building full of armed men to do what, exactly? Save me?" "Yes." The admission hung between them. Lucian stared at her like she'd spoken a language he didn't understand. "Why?" he asked finally. "Because you're my husband. Because despite everything, despite how this started, I don't want you dead." She wrapped her arms around herself. "Because somewhere in the past few weeks, I started seeing you as something more than the monster who bought me." Lucien's expression cracked. He reached for her, then stopped himself, his hand falling. "Arya." A sound outside cut him off. Footsteps. Multiple sets, moving fast. Lucian's hand went to his gun, and he pushed Arya behind him. The door they'd entered through rattled. "Lucien? You in there?" Relief flooded Lucian's face. "Marco, yeah, we're here." The door opened and 3 men entered. His guards, Arya recognized them from the estate. They were armed, alert, scanning the room even as they moved toward Lucien. "Boss, you all right?" Marco, the oldest of them, took in Lucian's bloodied face with professional assessment. "Fine. Victor?" "Gone to ground. We hit the warehouse right after you cleared out, took down most of his men. He got away, but he's bleeding. We'll find him." "Double the search teams. I want him found tonight." Lucien's voice was steel. "And lock down the estate. No one in or out without my explicit authorization." "Already done. Cars waiting 2 blocks over." They moved as a unit, Marco and his men flanking Lucien and Arya as they exited into the night. The streets were empty, fog rolling in from the harbor, making everything feel surreal. Like a movie set, Arya thought distantly. None of this could actually be her life. The car was a black SUV with bulletproof glass. Arya recognized it from the estate. She climbed into the back seat, Lucien sliding in beside her. Marco took the front passenger seat and they pulled away from the curb with controlled speed. "Elena's prepared the medical suite," Marco said over his shoulder. "Doctors standing by." "I don't need a doctor." "With respect, boss, your face says otherwise." Lucian touched the cut above his eye and winced. Fine, but Arya gets checked first. I'm fine, Arya protested. You fired a gun tonight. You ran through an active combat zone. You're getting checked. His tone left no room for argument. The drive back felt longer than it probably was. Arya stared out the window at the city sliding by, her mind replaying the warehouse, the gun in her hand, the way it had kicked when she fired, the man who'd fallen, whether from her shot or someone else's she didn't know and didn't want to know. First time? Lucian asked quietly. She didn't need to ask what he meant. Yes. It gets easier. I don't want it to get easier. He looked at her then, really looked, and something in his expression softened. Good. Hold on to that. The estate was lit up like a fortress when they arrived. Guards everywhere, lights blazing, the kind of security that screamed something had gone very wrong. Elena met them at the door, her face tight with worry. Thank the stars, she breathed, reaching out as if to touch Arya's face, then stopping herself. I'll prepare tea. The doctor is in the east wing. The doctor was a woman in her 50s, efficient and no nonsense. She checked Arya first despite Lucien's injuries being obviously worse, cleaned the reopened cuts on her palms, checked for concussion, pronounced her remarkably unharmed given the circumstances. You're lucky, the doctor said, packing up her supplies. Shock will hit later. Don't be alone when it does. Then she turned to Lucien, who'd been standing by the window, watching the grounds. Your turn. He submitted to her examination with ill-concealed impatience. The cut above his eye required 3 stitches. His ribs were bruised but not broken. Various other contusions and cuts were cleaned and bandaged. You should rest, the doctor said. Both of you. Tonight was traumatic. I have calls to make, Lucien said. Make them from bed. You're no good to anyone if you collapse from exhaustion. Lucien looked like he wanted to argue, but Arya caught his eye. She's right. Victor's in the wind. Your people are handling it. You need to rest. Something in his face shifted at her concern. He nodded slowly. All right, but I'm posting guards outside our room. I'd be surprised if you didn't. The doctor left. Elena brought tea and sandwiches neither of them touched. Eventually, the house settled into uneasy quiet, and they were alone in their bedroom with the door locked and guards in the hallway. Arya stood at the window, looking out at lights she now knew represented surveillance, security, the machinery of Lucien's protection. Her protection, she corrected herself, whether she liked it or not. Thank you, Lucien said behind her. She turned. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, still in his ruined clothes, looking more exhausted than she'd ever seen him. For what? Coming for me. Even though it was reckless and could have gotten you killed. He rubbed his face carefully, avoiding the stitches. No one's done that before. Risked themselves for me. You've risked yourself for me. Multiple times. That's different. You're my responsibility. And you're my husband. Arya moved closer. We established that, remember? For better or worse. Though I'm pretty sure tonight counts as worse. His mouth curved slightly. This wasn't even close to the worst night I've had. That's deeply concerning. Welcome to my world. He stood swaying slightly, and Arya reached out to steady him. His hand closed over hers, warm and solid. I meant what I said earlier, about you not being nothing. He stopped, searching for words. You matter, Arya. More than I expected. More than is probably smart. Her heart kicked hard against her ribs. Lucien, I'm not good at this, at feelings, at expressing them. I've spent most of my life making sure I didn't care about anything enough to be vulnerable. His other hand came up to cup her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone in that gesture that was becoming familiar. But you've gotten under my skin, and tonight when I saw you in that warehouse, I realized that if something happened to you, if Victor had hurt you because of me, I would have burned this entire city to the ground. Arya's breath caught. That's not healthy. No, it's not. He leaned his forehead against hers. But it's honest. They stood like that for a long moment, breathing the same air, the space between them charged with something Arya couldn't name. Want, maybe, or need, or just the desperate human impulse to feel alive after coming so close to death. We should sleep, she whispered, not moving. We should. He didn't move either. Lucien. Arya. If you're going to kiss me, just do it. Don't make it weird. He laughed, short and surprised. Then his mouth was on hers, and this kiss was nothing like the one at their wedding. This was heat and hunger and barely restrained need. His hand fisted in her hair, angling her head, deepening the kiss until she couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only feel. She kissed him back with everything she had, all the fear and anger and confusion of the past weeks, all the adrenaline still singing in her veins, all the terrible understanding that she was falling for the man who'd stolen her life and somehow given her a new one. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lucien rested his forehead against hers again. That wasn't weird, was it? Shut up. She kissed him again, softer this time. You're concussed and exhausted and bleeding in multiple places. We're not doing this tonight. Doing what? Whatever comes after kissing. Who says anything comes after? Your hands are on my hips, and you're looking at me like you want to devour me. Something definitely comes after. He smiled against her mouth. Brain check? When you're not half dead. Yes. She stepped back, creating space before she lost her nerve. Now get in bed before you fall over. He obeyed, stripping down to his boxers with movements that were slow and pained. Arya looked away, giving him privacy, though she'd already memorized the scars that marked his torso. Evidence of a life lived violently. She changed in the bathroom, emerging in an oversized t-shirt to find Lucien already in bed, eyes closed. She slid in beside him, and without opening his eyes, he reached for her, pulling her against his chest. Is this okay? He murmured. Arya relaxed into him, letting his warmth surround her. Yeah, it's okay. His arm tightened around her waist. If you have nightmares, wake me. Same goes for you. I always have nightmares. You'll be waking me every hour. Then I guess we'll be tired together. She felt him smile against her hair. Within minutes, his breathing evened out, and he was asleep. Arya lay awake longer, listening to his heartbeat, feeling the rise and fall of his chest. This man who'd bought her, trapped her, and somehow become the person she trusted most in the world. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, it felt inevitable. Like falling had always been the only option, and she'd just been fighting gravity. She closed her eyes and let herself fall. Morning came too fast. Arya woke to find Lucien already up, standing at the window with his phone pressed to his ear. His voice was low, controlled, but she could hear the tension beneath. I don't care where he is now. I want to know where he's going to be. Put eyes on every property he owns, every associate, every place he might run. A pause. No. We don't move until we're certain. I want this done clean. He ended the call and turned, noticing she was awake. Morning. Any luck finding Victor? Not yet, but he's bleeding, desperate, and running out of allies. We'll find him. He sat on the edge of the bed. How are you feeling? Like I was in a gunfight last night. You? Like I got the shit kicked out of me and then stitched back together. He touched the bandage above his eye gingerly. Could be worse. That's your life philosophy, isn't it? Could be worse. It's kept me alive this long. He took her hand, examining the fresh bandages on her palms. These need to be changed. I can do it. I know, but let me. There was something almost vulnerable in the request. Arya nodded, and he disappeared into the bathroom, returning with the first aid kit. He unwrapped her bandages carefully, cleaned the wounds with gentle efficiency, and applied fresh gauze. Where did you learn to do this? She asked. When you grow up like I did, you learn to patch yourself up. Doctors ask questions. He finished the second hand and pressed a kiss to her palm, right above the bandage. The gesture was so tender it made her chest ache. There. Good as new. Lucien, about last night, if you're going to say it was a mistake, I was going to say we should probably talk about it, about what it means. He set the first aid kit aside. What do you want it to mean? I don't know. A month ago, I hated you, wanted nothing more than to escape. Now I'm kissing you and worrying about whether you're going to get yourself killed. She pulled her knees up, wrapping her arms around them. It's confusing. You're allowed to be confused. Are you? Confused? No. His answer was immediate, certain. I know exactly what I want. Which is? You, here, with me. Not because I'm forcing you, but because you choose it. He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. I want you to stay, Arya. Not as my prisoner or my obligation, as my wife, my partner. Her throat tightened. That's a lot to ask from someone you bought. I know, and I'm sorry for how this started. If I could go back and change it, I would. But I can't. All I can do is try to give you reasons to stay now. He paused. I'm not good at this, at being open, at letting people in. But I'm trying, for you, I'm trying. Arya looked at him, at the stitches, the bruises, the exhaustion carved into his face, at the vulnerability in his eyes that he was letting her see. This was the man beneath the monster, broken and scarred and trying despite everything. I don't know if I can love you, she said honestly, after everything, after how this started. I don't know if that's possible. I'm not asking you to love me. Not yet. His hand found hers, fingers threading together. I'm just asking you to try, to give this a real chance, not because you're trapped, but because maybe, somewhere underneath all the fear and anger, you want to. Did she want to? Arya searched herself for the answer and found it waiting, terrifying and true. Yes. She wanted to try. Wanted to see if the connection between them could become something real, something chosen. Okay, she whispered. Okay? I'll try. We'll try. She squeezed his hand. But if you die on me, I'm going to be very upset. He smiled, real and unguarded. Noted. I'll do my best to stay alive. Your best hasn't been great so far. Then I'll improve. He pulled her closer, wrapping his arms around her. For you, I'll improve. They stayed like that, holding each other in the morning light, two broken people trying to build something whole from the wreckage of how they began. A knock at the door interrupted the moment. Lucian tensed, reaching for the gun on the nightstand before calling out, Who is it? Marco, boss. We found Victor. You need to see this. Lucian's expression hardened. He looked at Arya, conflict clear in his eyes. I have to. I know. Go. She pulled back. Just promise me you'll be careful. Always. He kissed her forehead, then her mouth, quick and sweet. Stay inside today. I'll have Elena keep you company. Lucienne. He paused at the door. Come back to me. Something fierce and possessive flashed in his eyes. Nothing could keep me away. Then he was gone, and Arya was alone with the knowledge that the man she was starting to love was walking into danger again, and all she could do was wait. The hours dragged. Elena brought breakfast, lunch, attempted conversation that Arya barely heard. She paced the bedroom, the library, the hallways like a ghost, haunting the edges of her own life. Every sound made her jump. Every car that passed the gates made her heart skip. Around 3 p.m, her phone buzzed. A text from Lucian. It's handled. On my way back. Are you all right? Relief flooded through her so intensely she had to sit down. Fine. Worried. What does handled mean? Tell you when I get there. 20 minutes. She spent those 20 minutes trying not to imagine what handled meant. Whether Victor was dead or captured. Whether Lucian had blood on his hands again. Whether any of it mattered anymore. When she heard the front door open, she was at the top of the stairs before she could think. Lucian appeared below, looking tired but whole. Their eyes met, and something passed between them that didn't need words. She ran down the stairs. He met her halfway, catching her in his arms, and she kissed him like he'd been gone for days instead of hours. I'm okay, he murmured against her mouth. I'm okay. Victor? Alive. In custody. He'll face consequences through proper channels. He pulled back enough to see her face. I didn't kill him. I wanted to, but I didn't, because you were right. I don't have to become the thing I'm fighting. Arya's eyes stung. I'm proud of you. Don't be. I still did terrible things to get him to talk. Just didn't finish with murder. His smile was wry. Progress, not perfection. I'll take it. She rested her forehead against his. Now what? Now we rebuild. Fix the security holes Victor exposed. Strengthen alliances. Make sure this doesn't happen again. He tucked hair behind her ear. And somewhere in all of that, we figure out how to be married for real. Sounds complicated. Everything about us is complicated. He kissed her softly. But I wouldn't want it any other way. Arya believed him. And for the first time since that day at the altar, she believed in the possibility of them. Not perfect, not easy, but real. They had a long way to go. Trust to build, wounds to heal, a future to create from the ashes of how they began. But standing there in his arms, safe and chosen and home, Arya thought maybe they could actually make it. Maybe love didn't have to be simple to be true. Maybe monsters could learn to be human. And maybe, just maybe, she'd found exactly where she was meant to be. The weeks after Victor's capture should have brought peace. Instead, they brought a different kind of tension, the kind that came from two people learning to exist in the same space without walls between them. Lucien tried. Arya could see him trying. He came home earlier when he could, asked about her day, shared details about his business that he'd previously kept locked away. Small gestures that felt monumental coming from a man who'd spent his life trusting no one. But old habits died hard. He still made decisions without consulting her, still gave orders like she was one of his men, still locked parts of himself away when the nightmares got bad. And Arya tried too. She stopped flinching when he touched her, stopped looking for exits in every room, stopped thinking of the estate as a prison. But trust didn't come easy when it had been broken from the start. And loving someone didn't erase the memory of how they'd hurt you. 3 weeks after Victor's arrest, Arya woke to find Lucien already dressed, standing at the window with his phone in hand. The tension in his shoulders told her something was wrong before he even spoke. "What happened?" she asked, sitting up. "Victor's lawyer is filing motions to get him released on bail, claims improper detention, lack of evidence." Lucien's jaw was tight. "He has judges in his pocket. There's a real chance he walks." Arya's stomach dropped. "And if he does? Then he comes for us. For me, for you, for everyone who helped take him down." He turned to face her. "I won't let that happen." "What are you going to do?" "Whatever it takes." The coldness in his voice made her chest constrict. "I have a meeting in an hour. People who can apply pressure, make sure the right decisions get made." "You mean bribe officials?" "I mean protect my family." He crossed to the bed, cupping her face. "This is my world, Arya. Sometimes the right thing and the legal thing aren't the same." "I know." She did know. She'd learned enough over the past month to understand that Lucien's empire existed in shades of gray, not black and white. "Just don't lose yourself in it." "I won't." He kissed her forehead. "I have someone to come back to now." After he left, Arya got dressed and went downstairs to find Elena in the kitchen, looking worried. "You heard?" Elena asked. "About Victor." "Yes." Arya poured herself coffee. "Lucien's handling it. That's what worries me." Elena set down the dish she was washing. "I've worked for Mr. Moretti for 8 years. I've seen him handle problems before. But he's different now since you came. He has something to lose." "You think that makes him more dangerous?" "I think it makes him more desperate." Elena's eyes were kind but concerned. "Men like him, when they finally let themselves care about something, they'll destroy anything that threatens it, even themselves." The words stayed with Arya all morning. She tried to distract herself with books, with walks through the garden, with anything that would stop her mind from spinning worst-case scenarios. But by afternoon, when Lucien still hadn't returned, anxiety had her pacing the library like a caged animal. Her phone buzzed. A text from a number she didn't recognize. "Your husband thinks he's won. He hasn't. Tell him Victor sends his regards." Arya's blood turned to ice. She was dialing Lucien before she could think, her hands shaking so badly she almost dropped the phone. "Arya, what's wrong?" "I just got a text from Victor or someone working for him. He's threatening—" "I'm on my way. Lock yourself in our room. Now." The fear in his voice terrified her more than the text had. "Marco's 2 minutes out. He'll stay with you until I get there." "Lucien, what's happening?" "Victor made bail 20 minutes ago. I was about to call you." She heard him moving, heard car doors slamming. "I'm 10 minutes away. Do not open the door for anyone except Marco. Understand?" "Yes." "Be careful. Always." The line went dead. Arya ran upstairs, her heart hammering. She locked the bedroom door and backed away from it, grabbing the closest thing to a weapon she could find, a heavy bookend from the shelf. Ridiculous, but it made her feel slightly less helpless. 3 minutes later, a knock. "Mrs. Moretti, it's Marco." She recognized his voice but still checked through the peephole before opening. Marco entered with another guard, both armed, both scanning the room like they expected threats to materialize from the walls. "We're going to secure the perimeter," Marco said. "Mr. Moretti wants you to stay here until he arrives." Did Victor do this? Get himself released just to send a message, most likely. But we're not taking chances. Marco's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his expression darkening. "There's a car approaching the gate, unregistered. Too many men inside." Arya's breath caught. "Is it?" Gunfire erupted from somewhere downstairs. Close. Inside the house. Marco shoved Arya toward the bathroom. "Lock yourself in. Don't come out until Mr. Moretti or I come for you." To his partner, "Call for backup. Now." More gunfire, shouting, the sound of breaking glass. Arya stumbled into the bathroom, her legs barely holding her. She locked the door with trembling hands and backed into the corner, making herself as small as possible. This was happening. Victor had come for them. For her. The bathroom door shook as something heavy hit it from the other side. Once. Twice. On the third impact, the lock gave way and the door burst open. A man she'd never seen before stood there, gun in hand, his smile cold and wrong. "Mrs. Moretti!" Victor would like a word. Arya threw the bookend at his head. He ducked, laughing, and grabbed her arm. She fought, scratching, kicking, screaming, but he was twice her size and trained for this. He dragged her out of the bathroom, through the bedroom, into the hallway, where 2 more of Victor's men waited. "Let's go," one of them said, "before Moretti gets here." They hauled her down the stairs. Arya saw bodies, guards she recognized, lying motionless. Elena, hiding behind the kitchen door, her face white with terror. She wanted to scream for her to stay hidden, to call for help, but then they were outside, the cool air hitting her face as they dragged her toward a black van. A gunshot cracked through the air. The man holding her right arm dropped, blood blooming on his shoulder. Arya twisted away as another shot took down the second man. She hit the gravel hard, rolling, and looked up to see Lucian. He stood at the gate, gun in hand, his face a mask of controlled fury. Behind him, more men. His men, pouring through, returning fire. Victor's people scattered, some dropping, some retreating to the van. Lucian reached Arya in seconds, pulling her to her feet, his hands running over her frantically. "Are you hurt?" "No, I'm okay." She was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. "They killed Marco." "I know, stay behind me." He pushed her toward one of his guards. "Get her inside. Lock down the safe room." "No." Arya grabbed his arm. "I'm not leaving you again." "Arya, last time I let you go alone, you ended up tied to a chair. I'm staying." Something flickered in his eyes. Frustration, fear, and something that might have been pride. "Fine. But you do exactly what I say. Understand?" She nodded. He pulled a smaller gun from his ankle holster and pressed it into her hand. "Safety's off. Point and shoot if anyone gets close." The van's engine roared to life. It lurched forward, heading straight for them. Lucien fired at the tires, but the van kept coming. At the last second, he grabbed Arya and dove sideways. They hit the ground rolling as the van crashed through the front gate in a screech of metal and stone. Lucien was up instantly, firing at the retreating vehicle. One tire blew, then another, but the van kept going, limping away on shredded rubber. Lucien's men gave chase in their own vehicles, and suddenly the estate was quiet, except for the ringing in Arya's ears. Lucien holstered his gun and pulled Arya to her feet, his hands shaking as he checked her over again. "You're sure you're not hurt?" "I'm sure." "Lucien, your hand—" He glanced down at his left hand where blood dripped from his knuckles. "Grazed. It's nothing." He pulled her against his chest, holding her so tight she could barely breathe. "When I got the call that they were inside, that they had you, but they didn't. You got here in time." "Barely." His voice was rough. "If I'd been 5 minutes later, you weren't." She pulled back enough to see his face. "We're okay. We're both okay." He kissed her then, desperate and claiming, like he needed to prove she was real and whole and his. When he finally pulled back, his eyes were blazing. This ends tonight. Victor, his organization, everyone who helped him. I'm burning it all down. Lucien, he came into my home, killed my people, put his hands on you. Each word was ice and fury. There's no coming back from that. No mercy, no second chances. This is war, and I'm going to win it. Arya saw the monster rising in him, the part he'd been trying to keep contained, the part that had built an empire on fear and blood, and she realized with sudden, terrible clarity that she had a choice to make. She could try to pull him back, to be the voice of reason and restraint. Watch him struggle between the man he was and the man he was trying to become. Let Victor keep threatening them, keep circling, until one of them was finally dead. Or she could stand beside him in the darkness. Except that sometimes love meant supporting the terrible things people had to do to survive. Then let's end it, she said quietly. Together. Lucien's eyes widened. You don't know what you're saying. Yes, I do. You said you wanted me as your partner, not your prisoner. So let me be your partner. Tell me how we destroy him. For a long moment, Lucien just stared at her. Then something shifted in his expression, surprise giving way to something deeper, darker, and infinitely more dangerous. All right, he said. Come with me. He led her inside, past the bodies being covered, past Elena, who was being tended to by one of the guards, into his office. The war room. He pulled up maps, files, everything his people had gathered on Victor's remaining assets. He's bleeding money, losing territory. Most of his allies have abandoned him. Lucien pointed to several marked locations. But he still has 3 safe houses, 2 warehouses, and a club that's his main base of operations. He'll be at one of these tonight, trying to regroup. How do we find him? We don't. We make him come to us. Lucien pulled out his phone, typed something, and looked at her. I'm going to spread word that you were taken, that Victor has you. Every family in this city will hear that he violated the most fundamental rule. He came after a boss's wife. But I'm right here. They don't know that. And when Victor hears the rumor, he'll either claim credit or deny it. Either way, he'll make a move. And when he does, we'll be ready. Arya's pulse quickened. That's using me as bait. That's strategy. He wants to break me by hurting you, so we let him think he's won, let him get cocky. Then we crush him. Lucien's hand found hers. But this only works if you're willing to play dead for a few hours. Stay hidden. Let me do what I do best. And what's that? Hunt. The word sent a chill through her. This was it. The moment where she either committed fully to this life or walked away. Where she accepted what Lucien was, or spent the rest of their marriage pretending she didn't know. I'm in, she said. What do you need me to do? Lucien studied her face, looking for doubt, for hesitation. He must have found only certainty because he nodded slowly. There's a safe room beneath the house. Reinforced, monitored. You'll stay there with 2 guards I trust with my life. You watch everything unfold on the security feeds, and you don't come out until I personally come for you. And you? I'm going to make Victor believe he's destroyed me. That losing you broke something fundamental. His thumb traced her cheekbone. Won't be hard to sell. If anything actually happened to you, it would. Lucien, I love you. The words came out raw, unguarded. I should have said it weeks ago. Should have told you every day since I realized it. But I'm saying it now before this starts. Because if something goes wrong, nothing's going wrong. Arya grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. You're going to execute this plan perfectly. You're going to end Victor. And then you're going to come get me. And we're going to live the rest of our lives without looking over our shoulders. Understand? A smile ghosted across his face. When did you become so fierce? About the time I married a monster and fell in love with the man underneath. He kissed her hard, pouring everything he couldn't say into it. When they broke apart, they were both breathing hard. Let's do this, he said. 3 hours later, Arya was locked in the safe room, a reinforced bunker beneath the estate that she hadn't even known existed. Monitors showed feeds from around the property and several locations across the city. Lucien had left 2 of his most trusted guards with her, men who'd been with him for over a decade. She watched on the screens as Lucien's plan unfolded. Word spread through the underworld like wildfire that Victor had kidnapped Arya Moretti. Within an hour, Three of the city's most powerful families had called Lucian, offering support, promising retribution if he gave the word. Victor's remaining allies were abandoning him in droves. His empire was collapsing in real time. "It's working," one of the guards said, watching a different monitor. "Victor's people are scrambling. Half of them are jumping ship." "Where's Victor?" Arya asked. "Still at his club. He's trying to rally what's left of his crew." The guard pointed to a screen showing thermal imaging of a building across town. "But they're deserting. He's down to maybe 15 men." 15 men with guns," Arya said. "That's still dangerous." "For normal people, yes. For Mr. Moretti?" The guard's smile was grim. "He's handled worse odds." On another screen, Arya watched Lucien coordinate his forces. He was in constant communication with his lieutenants, moving pieces like chess across the city, blocking escape routes, cutting off supply lines, systematically dismantling everything Victor had left. At midnight, Lucien's phone rang. Arya couldn't hear the conversation, but she saw his expression sharpen. He gave orders to his men, coordinated movements across multiple locations. The final phase was beginning. "They're moving on the club," the guard confirmed. "Victor's trapped. No way out." Arya's hands clenched as she watched Lucien's convoy pull up outside Victor's headquarters. 30 men, all armed, all loyal. They surrounded the building with military precision. No escape, no backup coming. Just Victor and his dwindling crew against an army that wanted blood. Lucien made one phone call before entering. Arya's phone buzzed a second later. "Are you watching?" he asked. "Yes." "This ends in the next hour, one way or another." His voice was steady, but she could hear the underlying tension. "Arya, if this goes wrong, it won't. But if it does, everything's set up for you. Money, properties, protection. Documents are in the safe in our room. Combination is your birthday." Her throat tightened. "Don't talk like that. I need you to know you're my wife, you're my heir. Everything I have is yours." He paused. "And if I don't make it out, you get as far from this city as possible. You understand? Take the money and run." "I'm not running, and you're coming back to me." "Then I will." His voice softened. "I love you. I should have said it before, but I'm saying it now. I love you, Arya." Tears burned her eyes. "I love you too. Now go finish this and come home." The line went dead. On the monitors, she watched Lucien enter the club, his men flanking him like an honor guard marching to war. The wait was agony. The cameras inside the club were limited. A few security feeds that showed hallways. The main room, glimpses of movement. She heard gunfire, brief and controlled. Not the chaos of the warehouse, but surgical precision. Lucien's men knew exactly what they were doing. "There," one of the guards said, pointing to a screen. "Second floor. That's Victor." Arya leaned forward, her heart in her throat. Victor was cornered in what looked like an office, 3 of his men with him, all armed. The door burst open and Lucien entered, gun raised. The confrontation was silent on the monitors, but she could read the body language. Victor saying something, probably threats or bargains. Lucien's response short, final. Victor's men dropped their weapons. Smart. They knew when they were beaten. But Victor himself lunged for Lucien, producing a knife from somewhere. Arya's scream caught in her throat as she watched Lucien sidestep, grab Victor's wrist, and twist. The knife clattered to the floor. Victor went down hard, and Lucien's gun was at his temple before he could move. The screen showed Lucien leaning down, saying something directly into Victor's ear. Whatever it was made Victor's face go white. Then Lucien stepped back and his men hauled Victor to his feet, zip-tying his hands behind his back. "It's over," the guard said. "Boss did it." Arya sagged against the wall, relief flooding through her so intensely she thought she might collapse. On the screen, she watched as Victor was dragged out of the club and shoved into an unmarked van. Lucien stood in the doorway, phone to his ear, coordinating cleanup. Her phone rang. She answered before the first ring finished. "Are you hurt?" "Scratched. Nothing serious." Lucien's voice was tired but steady. "Victor's in custody. Real custody this time. Not the kind money can buy out of. I've got friends in the federal system who've been wanting him for years. He's their problem now. And his organization? Scattered, broken. The families are already dividing up his territory. By morning, it'll be like he never existed. He paused. I'm coming to get you, 5 minutes. I'll be waiting. Those 5 minutes felt like hours. When the safe room door finally opened, Arya was standing, ready. Lucien looked exhausted, his shirt torn, a cut on his cheek, his knuckles bruised, but he was whole, alive. She crashed into him and he caught her, holding tight. It's done, he murmured into her hair. It's really done. Victor's finished. We're safe. We're safe, Arya repeated, testing the words. They felt foreign after so much fear. Lucien pulled back enough to cup her face. I meant what I said about loving you. I know. I meant it too. She looked up at him, seeing exhaustion and relief and something that looked like peace. What happens now? Now we go upstairs. I take a very long shower. We sleep for about 12 hours. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. And then we start figuring out what our life looks like without someone trying to kill us. Sounds perfect. They made their way upstairs, Lucien's arm around her waist, both of them leaning on each other. The house was quiet now, the bodies cleared, the damage being assessed. Elena met them in the hallway, tears streaming down her face. Thank the stars, she breathed. When I heard the shooting, we're okay, Lucien said gently. Are you hurt? No, just frightened. Elena wiped her eyes. I'll make tea. And food. You both need to eat. In the morning, Lucien said. Right now we just need rest. They made it to the bedroom, and Lucien locked the door behind them with a finality that felt like closing a chapter. He stripped off his ruined clothes and headed for the shower. Arya followed, and they stood under the hot water together, washing away blood and fear and the weight of the night. When they finally climbed into bed, clean and exhausted, Lucien pulled her against his chest. His heartbeat was steady under her ear, a rhythm that promised he was alive. He was here. He was hers. Arya? Thank you for staying, for standing with me tonight, for not running when you had every reason to. She lifted her head to look at him. Where would I go? You're my home now. Something in his expression cracked. I don't deserve you. Probably not, but you're stuck with me anyway. She kissed him softly. Now sleep. We have the rest of our lives to figure this out. He smiled against her mouth. The rest of our lives. I like the sound of that. They fell asleep tangled together, two people who'd found each other in darkness and chosen to walk into the light. The next few weeks were a strange kind of normal. Victor's trial made headlines. Federal charges, no bail. His organization's crimes laid bare for the world to see. Other families who'd been afraid to move against him came forward with evidence. The case was airtight. He'd spend the rest of his life in a maximum security prison. Lucien kept his promise. He started transitioning out of the illegal operations, moving money into legitimate businesses. It was slow, careful work. You couldn't dismantle an empire overnight without causing chaos. But he was methodical, strategic, bringing in lawyers and accountants to clean everything up. Arya threw herself into helping. She started going through his business records, identifying which ventures could be legitimized and which needed to be shut down. She had a head for numbers, it turned out, and a moral compass that helped guide which direction they should go. You're good at this, Lucien said one evening, watching her work through spreadsheets in his office. I had a lot of time to think while I was locked in this house. Figured I should make myself useful. You were always useful. You kept me human. She looked up at him. You're still human. You just forgot for a while. He moved behind her chair, his hand settling on her shoulders. I'm going to start a foundation. Use some of the money to help people like your father. People who got in over their heads and need a way out that doesn't involve selling their children. Arya's breath caught. Lucien, it won't fix what I did. Won't change how we started. But maybe it'll prevent it from happening to someone else. His hands tightened slightly. I want to build something good. Something we can both be proud of. She stood and turned to face him. What would you call it? I was thinking the Elena Foundation, after my mother. He looked almost shy. She believed in second chances, in helping people who'd made mistakes. This feels right. It's perfect. Arya wrapped her arms around his waist. We'll build it together. Together, he echoed, and it sounded like a promise. Over the following months, They worked to establish the foundation. Lucien put up the initial funding, more money than Arya had ever seen, laundered and cleaned and ready to do good instead of harm. They hired staff, set up application processes, started reaching out to families who needed help. The first family they saved was a mother with 2 daughters whose husband had gambling debts. Instead of having to sacrifice her children, she got financial counseling, debt consolidation, and a fresh start. When she came to thank them, tears streaming down her face, Arya saw something shift in Lucien. The weight he carried got a little lighter. "This is what power should be used for," he said that night, holding Arya close. "Not control or fear, actually helping people." "You're learning," she teased gently. "You're teaching." He kissed her temple. "I'm a slow student, but I'm trying." They were lying in bed, the windows open to let in the cool night air. The estate felt different now, less like a fortress, more like a home. Lucien had reduced the guard presence, upgraded security to be less intrusive. They'd even started hosting small dinner parties, normal gatherings with normal people, trying to build a normal life. "I saw my father yesterday," Arya said quietly. Lucien went still. "You did?" "He called, asked if we could meet. I said yes." She felt Lucien tense beneath her. "I needed closure." "How was it?" "Hard." He apologized, tried to explain, said he thought he was protecting me by giving me to you. She laughed bitterly. "I told him he was a coward who took the easy way out, and I'd never forgive him for it." "Arya, but I also told him I was happy. That somehow, despite everything, I'd found something real with you. That his terrible decision accidentally gave me a life I wouldn't trade." She lifted her head to look at Lucien. His face when I said that, I think he realized he never actually knew me, never understood what I was capable of surviving. "Are you going to see him again?" "Maybe. Someday. When I'm ready." She settled back against Lucien's chest. "Right now I'm focused on us, on building this life we're creating." "I like that plan." His hand traced patterns on her back. "Speaking of building our life, I've been thinking. Dangerous. I want to marry you again." Arya lifted her head, confused. "We're already married." "I want to do it right this time. No coercion, no deals, just you and me, choosing each other." His eyes were serious. "I want to stand in front of people who matter and promise to love you, honor you, be your partner in everything. I want you to have the wedding you deserved the first time." Her throat tightened. "Lucien, you don't have to answer now. Just think about it." He tucked hair behind her ear. "I know how we started was wrong, but I want our future to be right. And that starts with giving you a choice, really giving you one." Arya thought about it for a long moment. The girl who'd stood at that altar months ago would have run screaming, but she wasn't that girl anymore. She was stronger, fiercer, someone who'd learned that love could grow in the darkest soil and bloom into something beautiful. "Yes," she said. "Let's do it. Let's get married for real." The smile that spread across Lucien's face was pure joy. "Yeah? Yeah. But I'm planning it this time, my way. Anything you want. And you're writing your own vows. None of this scripted nonsense." "Deal." He pulled her into a kiss that was soft and sweet and full of promise. "I love you, Arya Moretti." "I love you too." She'd stopped being surprised by how true it was. "Even though you're still bossy and overprotective and occasionally terrifying, I prefer confident, cautious, and commanding." "Of course you do." They got married 6 months later, on a beach at sunset with 50 people who actually mattered to them. Elena was there, crying happy tears. Lucien's most trusted men stood as groomsmen, their weapons checked at the door for once. Arya's college roommate flew in, shocked and delighted to see her friend not just surviving but thriving. Arya wore a simple white dress, nothing like the suffocating gown from before. Her hair was loose, her feet bare in the sand. She felt free, whole, chosen. Lucien wore a suit but no tie, looking more relaxed than she'd ever seen him. When it came time for vows, his voice was steady and sure. "Arya, I didn't know what I was looking for when I married you the first time. I thought I needed control, needed power, needed to keep everyone at arm's length to stay safe." He took her hands. "You showed me I was wrong. You taught me that real strength comes from vulnerability, that love doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. I promise to spend the rest of my life being worthy of you, to choose you every day, the way you've chosen me, to build a life with you that's based on trust, not fear, partnership, not possession, and to love you with everything I have for as long as I breathe. Arya's eyes were streaming, but she smiled through it. Lucienne, you bought me like property and trapped me in a cage. You should have been the villain of my story. Instead, you became my partner, my protector, my home. You learned to be better because I demanded it. You changed because I refused to accept less. I promise to keep demanding better from you, to keep pushing you to grow, to never let you settle for the easy path. I promise to stand with you in the darkness and celebrate with you in the light. And I promise to love you, not despite how we started, but because of everything we've overcome to get here. The officiant pronounced them husband and wife, for real this time. When Lucian kissed her, it felt like sealing a promise they'd both chosen to make. The reception was simple: good food, better wine, dancing under string lights as the sun set over the ocean. Arya danced with Lucienne, with Elena, with the groomsmen who treated her like family now instead of a liability. She laughed more than she had in years, felt lighter than she could remember. As the night wound down and guests started to leave, Lucian pulled her away from the crowd. They walked down the beach, waves lapping at their feet, the world quiet except for the ocean. Happy? He asked. Deliriously. She leaned into him. Thank you for this, for letting me have the wedding I wanted. Thank you for wanting to marry me again, for giving me a second chance. He stopped walking, turning to face her. I know I don't say it enough, but you saved me, Arya. You took someone who was barely human and reminded him what it meant to feel, to love, to be loved. We saved each other, she corrected. You gave me strength I didn't know I had. You showed me I could survive anything and come out stronger. He kissed her forehead, soft and reverent. What do you want to do now? We have the hotel suite, but we could keep walking. Could stay out here all night if you want. Let's go back. I want to start our honeymoon properly this time. She grinned up at him. No armed guards outside the door. No enemies plotting revenge. Just us. Just us, he agreed. I like the sound of that. They walked back hand in hand, two people who'd found each other in the worst possible way and built something beautiful from the wreckage. A year later, Arya stood in what had become her favorite room in the house. Not the library anymore, but the office she'd set up for the foundation. They'd helped over 100 families now, prevented countless children from being bartered away to pay their parents' debts. The work was hard, emotionally draining, but vital. She was reviewing applications when Lucien appeared in the doorway, holding 2 cups of coffee. Thought you could use this, he said, setting one on her desk. You're a lifesaver. She accepted it gratefully. How was your meeting? Productive? The casino deal went through, completely legal, completely clean. We're officially out of the last of the illegal gambling operations. His voice held quiet pride. One more piece of the old empire gone. Arya stood and crossed to him, wrapping her arms around his waist. I'm proud of you. Couldn't have done it without you pushing me. He pulled her closer. You know, when I married you, I thought I was getting an asset, someone to control, to show off. And instead you got a pain in your ass who reformed your entire operation. I got a partner, someone who made me want to be better. His hand cupped her face. I got the love of my life, and I didn't even know I needed it. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and smiled. It's the lawyer. The adoption paperwork went through. Lucian's face lit up. We're approved? We're approved. They'd been working on adopting a little girl from one of the families the foundation had helped, a mother who'd been too young, too overwhelmed, and had asked if they knew anyone who wanted children. We can pick up Sophia next week. He pulled Arya into a kiss that tasted like joy and coffee and the future they were building together. When they broke apart, both were grinning like fools. We're going to be parents, he said, wonder in his voice. We're going to be terrible at it and mess up constantly and love that kid with everything we have, Arya corrected. Sounds perfect. He rested his forehead against hers. Thank you. For what? For staying, for fighting with me instead of giving up, for seeing something worth saving underneath all the terrible things I'd done. His voice dropped. For loving me enough to help me become someone worthy of being a father. You were always worthy. You just needed someone to believe it. She kissed him softly. Besides, you saved me too, gave me strength I didn't know I had, taught me I could survive anything. We saved each other. Yeah, we did. They stood there in her office, surrounded by files of families they'd helped, planning for the daughter they'd welcome into their home, building a future neither of them could have imagined that day at the altar. Arya thought about that girl in the white dress, terrified and trapped, thinking her life was ending. She wished she could go back and tell her the truth, that the monster she married would become the man she loved, that the cage he built would transform into a home, that the worst day of her life would be the beginning of the best thing that ever happened to her. She couldn't go back, could only move forward hand in hand with the man who'd bought her freedom and learned to give it back, who'd trapped her in his world and then rebuilt that world into something they could both live in with pride. I love you, she said, simple and true. I love you too. Lucian's smile was soft, genuine, the kind he only ever showed her. Always have. Always will. And standing there in the life they'd built from ashes and choices and the stubborn refusal to let darkness win, Arya believed him. They'd started in blood and coercion and fear, but they'd grown into something real, something chosen, something that proved love didn't have to be simple to be true, didn't have to be easy to be worth fighting for. The cage was gone. The monster had learned to be human, and the girl who'd been forced to the altar had become a woman who stood there willingly, proudly, knowing exactly who she'd chosen and why. This was love. Complicated, messy, built on broken foundations and cemented with determination to be better. But it was theirs, and that made it perfect.